Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I apologize for the background noise. I have a couple fans running. Even though I'm at elevation, it's still hotter than you can imagine. And that's what's going on. People want to call it global warming, but we've provided a mountain of evidence that the warming is true, but it has nothing to do with carbon dioxide. Or let me say this, very little to do with carbon dioxide. We have shown you over and over again how the sunspot totals do not match up, and they haven't matched up in the last 10, 15 years with the actual irradiance and energy coming off the sun. The problem we have with understanding what's going on with the sun is that there's so much disinformation. I mean, it's just a mountain of disinformation. And remember the days where the people who actually understood science would hold kingdoms at ransom when the solar eclipse would come, and people would say, well, if you want the sun to come back and you want to live another full life, you pay tribute, and I will bring the sun back. And those who did not understand what was going on paid the tribute. So scientists have always exploited their knowledge to take advantage of people that aren't as advanced in a scientific sense. The same holds true for today. Scientific secrets are protected like military secrets. Why? Because there's so much money involved in discoveries, in patents, and in manipulation of the sciences. There's much money to be made in the research. There's much money to be made all along this science gravy train. And there's been insiders coming out and talking about the pharmaceutical industry, about how some of the data had been manipulated to make drugs appear less dangerous and more effective. That I even made a video about that once upon a time, and those articles are still on the internet. And even a class that studied this stuff found that many complaints regarding the approval of medications, many complaints did not contain the name of the manufacturers in the FDA files. They were leaving out really huge key portions of that complaint. Many times it seemed like 70%, I'm going by memory now, the professor and his class found that 70% of the complaints, and that's a really rough ballpark, were devoid of very key information in those complaints, almost like they were hiding something. I can't prove they were hiding something. Maybe the FDA is just a little more negligent than we had anticipated. But whatever your theories are, whatever you think, the bottom line is that it's hotter than heck, that the lake temperatures are mimicking oceanic temperatures, are mimicking surface temperatures, and there's only one thing that can raise the temperature of all your lakes, especially the surface temperature, that can raise the surface temperature of all your oceans all over the globe, and your land temperatures. If you want to call that carbon dioxide, sorry, because what we're seeing is that the land temperatures and surface temperatures, their increases far outweigh and outperform the air temperatures, the atmospheric temperatures. So then you need to ask yourself, well, if this is true, what on earth is going to raise your surface temperatures, your water temperatures, your lake temperatures, your stream temperatures, melt your ice? But yet the air temperatures are not as extreme or exponential in their accelerated increases. There's only one thing that can do that, and that's radiation. If you don't believe me, just take a cup of water, and put it in your microwave. Turn it on for a minute till the water starts to boil. Put your hand in the microwave, then put your finger in the water. And you tell me, is the air temperature hotter or is the water temperature hotter? It's that stupid. It's so simple, it is stupid. And one of my favorite channels is, in fact, the Corbett Report. And I don't know whether that channel gets you tracked. It probably does. And we don't know whether or not that's a PSYOP channel, because they do report the truth, and some channels that report the truth get taken off, and there's a couple that get to stay on, mainly because they are tracking channels. And subscribing to some of those channels can get you on a list. But their notion that global warming is a joke is way off base. They've ignored key indicators, and I think they need to modify their position and to a carbon dioxide narrative, and make a joke about the carbon dioxide narrative, because we've showed you over and over. Come on, guys, how many times? 100 times? Put it on your comment section. How many times have I showed you the graphs of the energies coming off the sun, and they have nothing to do with how many sunspots there are? How many times have I showed you those graphs? Please tell me, somebody, because I've lost count. So if somebody's ignoring that information, then there's an agenda at play. And I don't think the Corbett Report is a PSYOP channel. I do not. But the bottom line is these guys are professionals, and when they do their work, they do their research, and they're not very sarcastic, and they don't poke fun at other research. They simply provide the data that contradicts the research. But that's all goes out the window when it comes to global warming. Then they become sarcastic. Then they start making jokes. Then they start mocking people. And that's way out of character for the Corbett Report, who used to be one of my favorite channels of all time on YouTube, mainly because of the standards that they have set. And I love it when I hear Corbett say, present your data and make your predictions. I can't believe the word predictions came out of the guy's mouth, because that is how you demonstrate your data is right on. You can make predictions based upon the data. So if the sun was putting out more energy, then you would make predictions like, white is hotter than yellow, so the sun would be turning white if it was getting hotter. Well, is the sun white or yellow? You can make predictions like, well, if there's extra cosmic rays in the solar system, we would have incredible auroras, unprecedented auroras at times. And have we not? You can make predictions based upon the data. Well, if there's more energy coming off the sun, more and more people would be falling sick, and the number of heat emergencies have gone through the ceiling. We have showed you over and over again how tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people have died in just this millennia, since 2000, 2001, from one thing: heat stroke, heat exhaustion, and heat-related illnesses, dehydration. And we have seen, you can make predictions. Well, if it's hotter, we would have forest fires going through the ceiling. We would have forest fires that we could not control. And the fact of the matter is, that's exactly what's happened. That we would predict a loss in production of farm productivity due to the heat. And oh my gosh, in 2011, we lost all of our corn crop. We lost millions of turkeys. We lost millions of chickens. We lost millions of pigs. And for those of you who like to eat pork. So what do you think that does to the global food supply and your national food supply? And all of these predictions you could make. We could predict, well, heck, if we're getting extra radiation from the sky, what absorbs radiation? Well, water. So we would predict record oceanic surface temperatures. And then we showed you the Argo system, which is thousands and thousands of buoys, not controlled by the United States, controlled by other countries. And guess what? Record warm oceans since about 2014, probably earlier, 2013 and 2012, but I started looking at Argo data in 2014, and when they said record warm oceanic temperatures, well, then we would predict bleaching of the coral, and that's what we see. We would predict the tidal pools becoming superheated, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing starfish die off. So everywhere you look around, we see evidence of extreme solar radiation. And if you don't believe me, just go lay out in the sun and see what happens. So what we're seeing and what we're predicting for the next 2 or 3 years is that when the sun goes into solar maximum, you're going to see the worst yet. We're going to see the worst radiation, the worst ultraviolet, the worst extreme ultraviolet ever seen. And that's something to be said because we've broken records this past 10 years. We've broken record after record. So more records are going to fall, and more people are going to fall, and more crops are going to fall, and more animals are going to fall, and more disease is going to plague the earth, and so algae blooms and things of that sort. So it's very, very important that people understand that the sun is white hot. We've done the research. We know where it's coming from. You want to argue that the cosmic rays aren't there? Just Google helium focusing cone. There's hundreds of articles written about it, about the helium. It's going back to the 1980s. So, and since the 1980s, the amount of helium being detected during solar minimums and solar maximums has been steadily rising. Now we know what it's from. We know it's from Planet 9, Planet 9X, Planet X, Nemesis, whatever you want to call it, Nibiru, whatever you want to call it. Why does this thing have so many names if it doesn't exist? So you have to protect yourself from this. You have to have a water supply. You have to be growing gardens and shade them. I've been talking with people at nurseries. Fruit trees that are supposed to be in 100% sun are now they're recommending 70% sun. So why are the people at the nurseries recommending 70% sun? So protect yourselves. This cosmic ultraviolet, the extreme ultraviolet, the gamma radiation, you can protect yourself with layers of mylar and the neutrons that are creating even gamma radiation. You can protect yourself with mylar. And people will say, well, gamma radiation passes through mylar. But wait a minute. If you have layered mylar, and some people have bought panels that we handcrafted. The gamma radiation panels, and they had 62 layers of mylar. 62 layers. Now, that may only be an inch thick, and you think, well, gosh, that's not thick enough. But when you layer your mylar, each time the gamma rays hit another layer, they refract. And you can refract, and change the directional component of your gamma radiation. All photon radiation, whether it's gamma or whether it's visible light, as it passes through, it will change its angle of travel. And so when you refract gamma radiation 60 times, you can actually keep it from coming straight in. You can reduce the energy. You can block some of it out. You can reflect some of it. You can absorb some of it. So protect yourselves and try not to drive in broad daylight. But the radiation coming off the sun right now is a lot less than it was in 2016. But that will change. And it will change in just a matter of a year or two. When the sun gets more sunspots, they'll get more energy. When it gets more energy, that energy will light up all the cosmic rays that are in and around our solar system. And when it gives off protons, when it gives off helium, those particle collisions will also give off radiation. And the electrons coming off this brown dwarf, when they get hit by the extreme ultraviolet and gamma radiation, when the electron runs into a photon, it itself will give off gamma radiation. So there are so many sources of radiation and different types of radiation being created in the corona of the sun, but also in the magnetosphere and in the general background source of X-rays and gamma radiation that we normally see in the background of our solar system. So protect yourself from it. Some of the symptoms of extreme UV are tissue failure, and especially in the fascia. That leads to soft tissue injuries, repetitive stress injuries, hernias. Also, the extreme UV will inflame your brainstem, and that will cause mood disturbances, cardiac disturbances. It'll cause cognition disturbances. It'll make you want to sleep even though you've had 8 hours sleep and just drank a cup of coffee. You will want to lay down and go to sleep because of inflammation in the brainstem. The gamma radiation does pass through you, but it does create free radicals in your brainstem as well, due to oxygen being irradiated. That will create a reactive oxygen species, and that will create inflammation in the brainstem. Inflammation in the brainstem, again, the symptoms are fatigue, exhaustion, poor communication, poor concentration, and mood disturbances, including rage and depression. Sleep disturbances, loss of appetite, all of those are symptoms of brainstem inflammation. Headache, migraines, even the pain behind your eye, the sharp, piercing pain, can be created by brainstem inflammation, because directly on the opposite side of the brain are your eyes. And guess where the easiest way for radiation to penetrate your skull is? Through your eyes. That's a direct path into your brain of soft tissue, very, very thin bone. And when you get radiation passing through your eye, where does it end up? It ends up in your brainstem. So, wear protective clothing. And we used to have being made, and we're thinking about going back to it. But right now, we're trying to jump on the things that are the greatest threat to you. Right now, the COVID is forefront, and we're in solar minimum. Yes, the sun is still harsh, but it's going to get worse. So we got to protect ourselves against all of this, because in 2023, if you think things are bad now, you just wait. And until next time, be prepared, not scared.